Okay, welcome everybody to the Economy, Environment and Place Scrutiny Committee. We'll go through the agenda obviously and accept any apologies for absence. I've not received any apologies, and we do know Councillor Panter is imminently going to join us hopefully, but I think everybody else is present. So we'll move on to item 2, which is declarations of interest. Does anybody want to declare any declarations of interest, please? Okay, I don't see anybody, so we'll say that's a no. So we'll move on to item 3, which is the minutes of the last meeting, and that's on pages 3 to 8 of your pack. Can I have a mover and a seconder for those, please? So Jill Heasom is moving, and a seconder is Marion Reddish. All those in favour? Okay, so we'll take that as passed. Thank you. And then the main items of topic for tonight is a coronavirus pandemic update, which you can find on pages 9 to 20 of your report. And we will move now to page 9, which is submitted by the Chief Exec. Who is actually going to lead this for us, please?
Chairman, the main detail this evening is in the appendix, which is set out in various sections, and the portfolio holder for each of those relevant bits will take you through them with officer support. So if you go to appendix 1, the first bit is around the commercial development and economic growth services, which is about the grants in the town centre. So I think that's probably Councillor Sweeney.
Okay, over to you then, Councillor Sweeney.
To be honest with you, I think the background 1, 2, 3, 4 is readable. It's really more interesting when we get to section 5, the town centre reopening. We talk about that if you like.
Yes, please.
Okay. The town centre shops opened on Monday. For me, I thought the most encouraging thing was the number of people that were around. We hear tales in the press that people are going to be terrified to go out of their houses. They won't come into town. Whereas in fact on Monday it was very pleasantly busy. 2 sort of hotspots were Sports Direct, which I believe did a 50% off for NHS staff, which we didn't know about, and left fairly lengthy queue outside there. And the NatWest Bank seems to be continuously busy, although speaking to the bid manager, they reckon that the Royal Bank of Scotland and the NatWest are the same company now. So you shut the Royal Bank of Scotland, you double the trade for the NatWest. So there's always seems to be a bit of a queue outside there, a manageable queue, but there's always a queue. The other banks appear, sometimes there's a queue, sometimes there isn't. Same with some of the coffee shops that are open now. We were concerned, I think, today with Greg's opening that Castle Walks might be worth looking at, but that seems to have because I mean it's been a filthy day today. That doesn't help. But of course, Greg's sit-down area is shut, so they can queue in there. When I went about 2 o'clock, there was no one in there at all. Although it was a filthy day. It talked generally about the town centre, and I personally feel it's gone really quite well. The teams have been out putting the 2-metre rules everywhere. The seats have got a sign in the middle saying 2 metres rule, so you sit each side of the sign. There's lots of directions, lots of work going into the town centre. I think we made the decision that we were going to more black and yellow tape it and black tape it and things like this, and direction arrows and footsteps on the ground. Sort of Hanley made a decision, I think, to put metal barriers up everywhere. I think I don't know. Speaking for Hanley, I don't know how this has gone, but certainly I think Newcastle's gone quite well. It seems quite a good buzz in it. Talking about the markets, do you want to talk about markets a bit?
No, we'll keep on town centre first.
Okay,
it's the next section.
I feel that all the car parks are open now. The Midway opened today on Monday for the first time, but I felt it was handled pretty well, and I felt the most encouraging was the number of people in the town. To be honest with you, we all had dire warnings about this, but there were plenty of people around, and they seemed quite happy with the way it was working. And I'm happy to take any questions or points or anything you think we've missed off that we could have done better, that sort of thing.
Thank you. I've just got two myself, and then I'll hand over to members if that's okay. I mean, I went round the town on Tuesday myself to gather some feedback. I spoke to a number of high street stores. The biggest issue that they raised actually was lack of police presence. And I wondered whether or not we'd had any engagement with the police.
Well, I certainly saw police on the streets and PCSOs on the streets, especially around well, that's on Monday though. That was with the Sports Direct thing, but I can't say I saw a huge lot of police around. No, whether the officers had discussions with the police, I'd imagine they did. But if you can bring Simon Mack into this, he might know more than I do about this.
Yeah, no, and thank you, Chair. We did engage with the police in terms of what we were planning to make sure that they were aware, because we were worried early doors when we started planning for the reopening. We weren't quite sure of the numbers of people, and we weren't quite sure of where people would be queuing and how their patients would tolerate queuing, etc. Because we had, on our walkarounds pre-opening, when we were planning what we were doing, we did notice some quite lengthy queues outside banks and stuff, and we thought, well, the shops in front of those queues will get agitated and stuff, and we could envisage shop owners being angry with the queuing for banks and stuff. So we did engage with the police on Monday, when we were out and about checking that everything was all right. There were two PCOs that were walking around, and we had lots of conversations about the police coming on board and making sure that they were visible, and we actively asked them to be in front of the Sports Direct and the Hassel Street area of the town centre on Monday, just because that's where a majority of the queues tended to be on Monday. So yes, Chair, they have been made aware. We have had discussions, and we are continuing to have conversations with them.
Thank you, and I think that would be supported by the shop owners that I spoke to. They said that they saw police on the Monday, but actually on the Tuesday there had been none. And in the centre of the town there was actually 5, I'll say, vagrants who were drinking alcohol and causing a bit of a nuisance. They were actually moved on by a member of the BID, and they got some verbal abuse. So I think just maybe having some encouragement for some police presence would be useful. Something I would recommend.
We were made aware of that issue about the on-street drinking, and we have liaised with the police in the last couple of days to try and make sure that doesn't happen. Because what we want to do is, we've had an opportunity to deal with homelessness and home rough sitting, as they call it, where people are sitting on the streets drinking, etc., presenting themselves as homeless. We've had a good 3 months to deal with the individuals that have been affected by that in the past, and we want to try and make sure that when we now we are reopening the streets and the high streets, that we've got that type of activity as a history rather than a future for the high street. So we are dealing with that through the homeless and the rough sleepers team and the police engagement as well, to try and minimise the back to old habits, if we could say.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you. And then the second question was...
Sorry, Chair, can I just point out, I've had Councillor Fears just email me. Can somebody let him back into the meeting?
Okay, so hopefully Mr. Elton can
do that. But he's in the waiting area, apparently.
David Elkington, are you on?
I suspect he's still with Barry Panzer, is he?
You're muted, Martin.
Yeah, Councillor Panter is now in the meeting.
Right.
I saw him. No, he's not. He's disappeared again. So Dave's probably trying to get Councillor Panter in. I've already messaged him to say about bringing Councillor Fear in, and Councillor Fear is now back.
Yes. Are you with us, Councillor Fear?
Councillor Fear is muted.
I love it.
I hope I'm back.
You are.
I had a collapse out and I had to come back in, and then somehow I got into the waiting room rather than anyway, all's well that ends well.
Okay, glad you're back. Good, good. So I was just going on to a second question I've got, and then I'm handing over to members. And that was, have we got any intention, or have we already actually gone and got feedback from the high street shops that are reopening this week to see, you know, how they're doing? Is there anything more as a borough council we can do to support, etc.?
I think that sort of job, chairman, really is, I think, probably something that the bid could undertake. But it's a reasonable point, and we take it up with the bid. You know, they've got the 2 ambassadors and the bid manager who's supposed to be running the show in the town centre on this sort of thing. Well, certainly one of the ambassadors is being very active going around the businesses this week, because I've seen every day I've been out, so I can see them. Yeah, with respect on that one, Councillor Sweeney, I mean, the bid are there to do their own job, and yes, they are the representatives for business traders. But as a borough council, we also have an obligation to make sure that we're doing everything that we should be doing in the town.
I'm in the middle of a meeting at the moment. Who am I speaking to?
Yeah, I think our officers are working very well with the bid and working with the businesses. To be honest with you, I spent a lot of time on Tuesday actually with the bid manager and one of the sort of senior board members in the town centre, who seem engaging with a lot of people, a lot of residents, and a lot of shop owners and stall holders as well. Okay, and that will get fed back into the borough. Yep. Okay, great, thank you. Any members want to ask any questions or raise any points? So, Jill Heeson.
Yeah, would we know whether the storage unit under view is going to be opening? Because I believe a few of the shops use that to store things in, so it might have an impact on what they can offer when they open. Yeah, it's open now. Okay.
Any other questions on town centre?
Can I just come in there, please, Gary?
Of course, can, Trevor. Yeah.
I was in the pet shop on the high street yesterday, getting some birdseed and stuff for my wife, and I was asking them how it was going, and they said the day before it's been quite manic, and there was no observing the 2-metre rules, not only the public but even the stall holders, and she was quite irate about it. So that's it, just point that out to you.
I think that goes again back to police presence. If there's a bit more police presence, that could be maybe enforced a bit more rigorously.
Absolutely.
Okay. No more questions on town centre. Are we okay to move to markets? Oh, sorry, Simon, Kenny.
Sorry, just if I could come, thank you, Chair. Just if I come back around Councillor Johnson's comment there about social distancing and stuff. There is a requirement on each of the shop owners and the stall holders to try and enforce the 2-metre rule as specified by the government at the moment. And we have sent out advice on how each retailer and market stall should try and maintain that. And we are trying to adhere to that on the high streets and stuff. But we are relying on the general public also working within those guidelines. And what we don't want to do is be the big brother that starts to instruct and hand out shouty instructions to the residents and the customers in the high streets. Try and, you know, everybody understands the 2-metre rule now because we've been doing it for 3 months, etc., and in supermarkets, etc. But there are instances where, for a short period of time, there will be less than 2 metres between customers. But what we do need to remember is it's not just a 2-metre rule; it's a 2-metre and a 15-minute rule as well. So it's, whilst it might be less than 2 metres for a short period of time, it's not for a long period of time. And this 15-minute advice that was given by the scientists and the government early doors it's not really at the forefront of people's minds at the moment. It just seems to be the 2-metre rule. But we are trying our best to try and maintain the messages. So you'll see around the town centre, we've got stencils on the floor with footprints and 2 metres apart. We've got lots of signs, etc. So it's not without trying that we've tried to maintain this message. But if ever anybody's been to a supermarket in the last 3 months, you can maintain a 2-metre distance for most of your visit, but sometimes there's going to be a point where you won't have a 2-metre, but it's not for more than a few seconds or a few minutes at a time. So just to put everyone's mind at ease that we are trying our best, but sometimes the customers it is the customers that put themselves within the 2 meters, not us.
Simon, it was not a criticism, it was just an observation.
No, I didn't take it as a criticism. I was just making sure that people
Yeah.
understood that it's a very complicated.
Yes.
It was, 3 or 4 months ago, I didn't even know that 2 meters and 15 minutes was going to be a big part of my life, but it is.
Okay, thank you. So I don't think that I can see anybody else's hand, so we'll move on to markets and back to you, Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah, the markets have reopened and are picking up fairly rapidly. On Tuesday, which is the day we were talking about, it was the antiques market as well, and virtually every stall was taken, and there's a real good buzz in the area, and the fact that these people want to come and trade. I mean, I can only tell you that one of the people, he's sold out by 1 o'clock, and he's gone home because he's sold everything. The fruit and veg stalls are packing up because they've done. So I think we've taken some of the stores out from the bottom. We're going to do sort of click and collect parking in there, and I think it's gone really well. People are more or less. I mean, there's always. I mean, they caught Matt Hancock, didn't they, in the House of Commons yesterday? I think people more or less certainly very aware of the 2 meter rule and doing their best to obey it. And the stores look good and they look busy. And I say the most, like I've said before, is the number of people in the town. It's busy. It looked really good on Tuesday.
Yeah.
The place was I'll say it was chock-a-block, but it was very, very busy, and we didn't have the big queue at Sports Direct, so we still had people in the town centre, and I was most encouraged by it.
Thank you. And the feedback you're saying, Councillor Sweeney, has been positive from the stall holders themselves?
Yes. Well, they're coming back, aren't they? If they won't take any money, they wouldn't come, would they?
Indeed.
But certainly the two that I'm speaking to are done and wrapped up and sold out and ready to go home.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments, members?
Yeah. And then it said meeting's been recorded. Do I just press the blue continue?
Yes, you do.
I did.
Do you want to raise a point on markets?
Sorry. Hello, oh.
I think he's still coming in, isn't he?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. All right, we'll move on then. So we are now on to section 14, which is car parking and bus station.
Okay, we've used this to clean the midways are opened up on Monday, so all our car parks are now open rather. We're doing a no enforcement this week and no enforcement next week. The week after that, we'll put notices on people, sort of warning type notices saying this will be enforced. And then the week after that, which I think I've written down a bit of paper somewhere, it's the 6th of July, Monday the 6th of July, we will start enforcing. That seems to give, it seems along the lines of most other authorities are doing. In fact, I think some have started charging from day one, haven't they? But it gives the town centre charge to pick itself up and recover, and we'll see how it goes. The parking machines, the new parking machines we talked about, they're starting to go in tomorrow. So it's not been done on this on purpose. They're starting to go in tomorrow on a phased sort of scale. But we're waiting for Capita, who are going to be doing the no money things, cards, where you swipe a card type thing. But they're going to take, I think, 4 to 6 weeks to sort the technology out and the computer links and everything before we go live with that. But the actual coin part of the machines will be live as soon as they go in.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions, members? Yes, Councillor Jones. Councillor Jones. Yeah.
Just on that point with the car parks, I think it'll be appreciated that enforcement will be light in the next couple of weeks in order for people to get back into parking in town and using town centre. But I just wondered if the approach to enforcement can be tied to when car parks actually have the contactless pay, because obviously there are residents who will want to avoid using the contact-based pay with the change. So perhaps not enforcing on those car parks that don't have the tech enabled yet is a sign of good faith to residents that we're putting their health at the utmost.
Yeah, but that'll be another sort of 4 to 6 weeks yet, and the machines will all be cleaned regularly. There's areas around it where you can only one at a time sort of thing can go on it. So I think we're doing everything we can.
What sort of level of frequency are we cleaning the machines or sanitising them? Do you know?
No, I don't. No, I'll find out for you.
Any other comments on car parking? Anyone?
Can I make one, please?
Yes, Councillor Rose.
Two things. One, just on the back of what Councillor Jones has said, I'd be interested to see the risk assessment, if possible, for sanitising the car parking machines with using small change. If that could be emailed, that'd be great. And just as a matter of interest, Radio Stoke was doing a story about the backlash in Cheshire East today about introducing car parking charges.
Okay. Any comments on that, Councillor Sweeney, or have you just noted it?
I didn't say here the second part, to be honest with you, about Cheshire East.
I was just pointing out that Cheshire East, that Radio Stoke ran a story regularly today about backlash for car parking charges by Cheshire East Council. I'm just making it as a point of interest or notice to draw your attention to it.
Right, but that's yes, okay, but they're doing it now. We won't be doing it for another 2.5 weeks.
Not debating, just drawing your attention.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to speak? Yeah, Councillor Panther.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry I was a bit late. It wouldn't let me on. I missed you started the discussion. I'm concerned about the multi-storey car park and disabled access. Is this going to go ahead, and when?
I'm not quite sure what you're trying to make, Barry.
Well, when is the roadblock? The big one by the roadblock. Is that going to open? And if so, when for disabled?
Well, it's open now.
Is it? Well, it wasn't the other day.
Well, it wasn't. It was as on Monday.
Ah, well, no, I'm talking about Saturday. So that's okay then. Thank you.
Monday, Barry.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands, so on that basis, we'll move on to section 15, which is economic recovery. Is it still with you, Councillor Sweeney, or somebody else?
It's probably with me, actually. If you talk about the, this is mainly relating to the grants we've been giving out, I think. As you may or may not be aware, the council got given £23 million to hand out to companies based on rateable value, and the latest given 1,735 payments out, totaling £19,935,000 that has gone into the local economy. Those grants are either £10,000 or £25,000. Also, on top of that, there's a discretionary grant just been started, and at the moment we've given out £211,000 on that. Now that's to local businesses with a rateable value of between £15,000 and £29,999. So we've given out another £211,000 on that, and we're still pushing that. That's got till it's got another 2 weeks to go. 29th of June that runs up till. So we're still pushing that now. And if anybody knows anybody who hasn't got a grant for anything, has a rateable value between £15,000 and £29,999, please put them towards the council. It's not payable back. You don't. It's not a loan. It's money.
Okay. And then the report goes on to talk about the Future High Street Fund and the 2 town deals. Have you got an update on that, please?
Oh yeah, we've got the Future High Street Fund is getting near completion now. This is a sum of money up to £25 million, although I don't think there'll be anything like £25 million we'll be going for. And then there's also town deal funds for Newcastle, same figure, and a town deal fund for Kidsgrove, same deal. Now 2 boards have been set up, one for each, which I'm on one and Councillor Tagg's on the other, on the Kidsgrove one, and those are progressing along quite nicely. There's a fellow called Acom actually doing the drawing it together. We've got an officer appointed to work for the Borough Council, working with our existing officers, and that's progressing along quite nicely.
And when are the deadlines for those, and are we on schedule?
I think the 2 town deal ones have been put back a while, We can ask Simon Mack if he knows the actual date. The High Street Fund, I think, is going in June. It might be July. Simon Mack, do you want to come on these? Do you actually got the dates on it?
No, it's fine. The original submission date for the Future High Street Fund was the end of June, but the government have now given us an extension, if we require it, till the end of July. So at any point between the end of June and the end of July, we will be submitting our bid for the Future High Street Funds, which will cover the areas of the Rycroft Centre, the Rycroft site, all the way down through the High Street and towards the Midway. And then the town deal boards for both Kidsgrove and Newcastle have up until October to submit their bids. We've appointed ACOM, a consultancy company, to work through the project prioritization with each of the boards, and they are now reviewing each of the schemes that have been put forward by members of the board for further consideration, business case development, etc., for further analysis by each of the board and agreement. So those particular schemes that will be put forward by each of the boards will be worked up over the summer with a submission in early autumn.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll just go on to cover section 18, which completes this section, and then we'll open up to questions. So section 18 is about supporting residents who are unemployed. They're now claiming universal credit. Goes on to talk about training, Newcastle College, and linkages with the BES, County Council and Support Staffordshire. Do you want to give us an update on that, please, Councillor Sweeney?
Well, it's built on a group that's an existing group, and it's building on that. But if I can pass it over to Simon Mack, I think he probably knows more about it than I do.
Okay.
That's fine. What we're doing is we're working with the stakeholders and partnerships across the borough in terms of the County Council, the LEP, the employment and skills partnerships that were put in place at the end of or towards and during the last recession that we're now revisiting. There's a meeting on the 24th of June where we are to discuss how we support those affected from an employment or an unemployment point of view, but also those businesses that have been affected as well. We've seen some figures about claimants across the borough for universal credit, and it did have a dramatic rise from around the 2% of the employable population to around 4% in March, April time, and then it rose to around 5%, just under 6%. The national average is around 7%, so we are actually doing quite well in terms of current universal credit claimants, but we are still not out of the woods yet because the furlough schemes haven't come to an end. Now we're coming out of lockdown and people and companies are starting to trade again. More redundancies may well happen, but we are tracking this on a monthly basis. We are plugged into try and support as best we can, as quickly as we can, but as we are still in the middle of this, we are very much working on what we think the support mechanisms and interventions might need to be, rather than this is the result of something, this is the action we therefore need to implement. So we're working through a lot of scenarios and ideas corporately and with stakeholders, but it is still very early days because I think it's the furloughing scheme and the fact that we are in lockdown up until very, very recently has been shielding the actual impact. And I think the true extent of the impact of this will come out in the next few months as we come out of this and businesses start to realize what they can and can't do going forward and who they need to employ and who they have to let go.
That's very useful, thank you. So we've now finished this particular section, so I'll open up to members, please. No, I'm not seeing anybody wanting to raise any points or questions. Okay, so that takes us off that entire category because we're moving on to recycling and fleet services. So I'll just do a summation as to what I believe we've discussed and what is required moving forward. So we talked about interaction and feedback from the high street shops. We're only in week 1. Obviously, that is linked in primarily with the bid. What I'd like to recommend to members we request, if they are happy, is that we request a written report to us as a committee in 1 month's time to demonstrate that interaction and feedback has been undertaken and what that is and any actions that have been taken as a result of that. Are members satisfied with that as a move forward?
Absolutely fine.
Yeah, fine.
Thank you. We also were concerned at the police presence in the high street, and we're asking that the council actually makes representations for an ongoing police presence so that the public are satisfied and both the high street owners are satisfied that that is being maintained. And thirdly, we asked for the frequency of sanitisation of the car parking machines and for a copy of the risk assessment to be forwarded to us. Have I missed anything that members want to be integrated apart from those? No?
That's fine.
Okay, good. Thank you. So that means we'll move on to recycling and fleet services. Is this the portfolio holder?
Yes, fine, no problem. Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to thank all the team involved in getting our new system rolling out across the borough. I do see over the next 6 to 8 weeks we might have the odd snag appearing, but it seems to be going fairly smoothly at the moment. I know you, Chair, I know you had a bit of a problem with it, lacking some information, but I hope you've got it now. I do see at the end of that period that we are going to be recycling quantities that we have never recycled before, if you understand what I say. Our tonnages are going to be up. And on top of that, when our new smaller fleet of twin packs come in, I believe that our emissions will be lower by about 50% on the previous system. And that's where we stand at the moment.
Okay, so that's the background. Are you going to talk through the various sections, service impact, phased rollout, etc.? Give us a bit more detail.
Well, I wouldn't mind if for Andrew, he's got it all at his fingertips, if you wouldn't mind. I'm sure he wouldn't mind doing it for me.
Over to you, Andrew.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to build on what Councillor Johnson said, effectively, yeah, the sort of COVID pandemic has been challenging, but effectively the idea was to try and keep all services operational whilst you know, installing social distancing with our crews and also dealing with the loss of about 25% of our workforce through COVID related issues, either self-isolated, shielding and so on. So one of the first things we did was effectively we had to make the decision to cease operating the source separated system because the vehicles themselves are, you know, the system's labour intensive. The vehicles themselves, you can't achieve social distancing. You can't operate it with 2 in a cab. So we effectively switched over to picking the materials up and co-mingling them using standard refuse collection vehicles. And basically that allowed us to reduce our vehicles from 16 down to 7 operating a day, which therefore allowed us to deal with the loss of staff and also to deal with the social distancing issue more effectively, and also actually improve the collection efficiency of the service. So that worked. The downside of that was that material then has to be sent to a material recovery facility to be reseparated, and the costs of that are very substantial. So it's unsustainable in the long term. So thoughts then effectively came to the point of having to look really to introduce the new recycling service early in order to get that started and actually get to the budget position that we should be for this year. And also it was really untenable to go back to the source separated service for the reasons I've just given effectively. So that's really where we're at. The only downside of all that was that we've lost currently the separate food waste collection service, so that had to be suspended. But as we roll the new recycling service out, we're hoping that we can resume food waste collections in August, all being well. So that's the idea. On the other side as well is we've had to deal with huge increases in waste as well that have been presented. So I've just set out some figures there. We've just done over 2 million, emptied 2 million containers in the couple of months since lockdown. We've actually collected nearly 8,500 tonnes of waste, and again, refuse is the big one. It's gone up by nearly 22% over that period of time. So we've had to deal with, and we're not the only local authority. This has been a national trend, effectively, where volumes of waste have increased dramatically in the lockdown period, and that's possibly because more people, or virtually everybody, has been at home. They've all been having clear outs, doing the gardens and everything else, but it's put additional strain on the service, but we've managed to cope with it. Do you want me to now just go on to the phased rollout of the new service?
Well, I think let's just stop at that point and just see if any members have got any questions on what you've just taken us through, first of all, or any comments. Not seeing anybody. I mean, just on that, I mean, and dealing with the COVID situation for the last 12 weeks, you know, I'd like to say big thank you to yourself and Bruce. I think you've done a phenomenal job.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
To cope with absence levels of that magnitude and to keep the service going. Whilst we saw all of our neighbouring authorities, you know, the garden waste went by the wayside very early on. It didn't for us. You know, you've really done an excellent job, and I'd just like to thank you all for that.
Thank you very much. I'll certainly pass that on to the team. They have done a sterling job, I have to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the phased rollout then.
So okay, so the original intention was effectively to roll the new service out in September. The idea was that we were going to deliver the bins and bags during August, and then as I say, start operations in September. For the reasons I've just been through, effectively we brought that forward. We managed to get the bin manufacturer to pull the production forward, and also the distribution side. But we decided also to start phasing the collections in as we rolled the service out, so that effectively we could try and gain some economies of scale, certainly financially, as we rolled it out. So effectively where we sit tonight, we have now completed all the bin and bag distribution in the south of the borough. So I'll talk about north and south because that's the way we actually split the collection rounds. So that's now complete in the south, and we'll move into the north of the borough from Monday. And the total rollout will be complete in about another 3.5 weeks. In terms of the collections, we did our first 2 last week on Monday and Tuesday, and that was in the Silverdale, Nutton and Thistlebury and Maybank area, and it went really well. Monday was a challenge, I have to say. I like to use the analogy that, you know, it looks like a swan swimming on a lake. Quite peaceful, but actually underneath the legs are going like mad, and that's what it was a little bit like, not certainly on Monday. And it's a bit of a challenge trying to run the two services, to be honest, but we did it. And I have to say, residents really seem to have embraced it. The quality of the material was absolutely tremendous. The paper and card, which we need separate in order to maintain quality, but actually keep our costs really tight and low, was good. There was no evidence of any card and paper in the wheelie bin element. As I say, the quality was fantastic, and the participation was great as well. So that's really encouraging, and comes back to the point Councillor Johnson made earlier. So we're off to a good start, I feel. From Monday, we will be doing our first full week. So all the southern area will have their twin stream system. It will be operating Monday to Friday. So clearly the Monday and Tuesday's collections, it will be those residents second time, but then everybody else the first time. So it's going to be quite a major milestone for us, to be honest, but we're ready for it, we're prepared, and looking forward to seeing how that goes. And then obviously, as I say, the rollout for the northern rounds will continue up until mid-July, and again those operations will be phased in as that rollout goes through. And again, we're looking forward to those coming on stream as well. So we've communications wise, obviously we've got a communications plan. We're doing an awful lot on social media. There have been teething troubles with any sort of distribution of, you know, nigh on 60,000 bins is quite a logistical task. But we're, you know, it's just to reassure we are on top of it. You know, there have been one or two problems, but we're sorting those out. Resident confusion doesn't seem to be a massive problem, and it is difficult for some because we're going from a weekly service, we have to remember, to a fortnightly service as well. And it depends when those bins are delivered in terms of then when your next or new collection starts. So your bin might be delivered and you have one last box collection before then you start using the bins. So that's quite difficult to manage. But we've got our own Facebook page that was, and again, thank you to this committee because that was a recommendation you made some time ago. That has paid absolute dividends because we can be absolutely on top of things, reacting immediately, but actually pushing some really positive messages out, not just about the new service, but about other things that are related to it. So yeah, so that's effectively where we're at. So certainly by the end of July, beginning of August, new service will be completely rolled out. Food waste service will then come back into play, and then, you know, from that side we'll be complete.
Thank you. Members, any questions or observations on the rollout of the new service?
If I could just interject again. Andrew, could you just mention a little bit about the contaminated bins?
Yes, certainly, yes. So I mentioned obviously about the quality. It's really vital that you know, the quality of the material is maintained because, as I say, the paper and card gets sold separately, but the plastic cans and glass still has to go through a process where it's separated and then it goes back into remanufacture. It's absolutely vital that material is clean and we don't contaminate it. Although we've been able to increase the range of plastics that we can take and things like that. So there's lots of positives. But we need to be really vigilant and manage contamination very carefully, because if we don't, our costs could escalate and we will get rejected loads from the material recovery facility. So to give you an indication, you know, one of the councils in the south of Staffordshire has cost them around about £400,000 in rejected loads over the last 12 months because they haven't necessarily managed to manage that processed properly. So we're being quite robust, I have to say. But that said, we only had to, of the 2 days of collections we did last week, where effectively there was over 10,000 properties collected, we only had to tag about 200 bins. And as I say, that that's a really thought going forward. Hopefully we can maintain that. And what we do there is if we tag somebody's bin, that is followed up at the moment by a letter going, or and we're able to have phone calls, phone discussions with those residents. Moving forwards, as we come out of the COVID pandemic, we'll have officers who are able to go out and visit people as well to just help with the education side of things. But as I say, it's really important that we manage it. But at the moment, it's really encouraging what we've seen in terms of the quality of the material we're picking up at the moment. So that we're off to a great start.
Good. And that, to state the obvious, is all down to the robustness of the comms as well, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Communications is absolutely key to it. It really is. And again, I think where authorities have taken budget away from communications, over the years, it's come back to haunt them in terms of rejections and things like that, and costs then escalating another way.
Indeed. Thank you. I saw Councillor Panter, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just a couple of quick points, Chair. Firstly, calendars. When are we going to get them? As it's already caused a bit of confusion with my local neighbours. They've had the boxes delivered on Tuesday and they put the new ones out already. And secondly, the old recycling boxes. I was approached this afternoon by a lady acting on behalf of an animal charity. Said they would welcome as many as they can get. No, I don't have one yet, but okay. I can try and find out and let you know if necessary.
Okay, Councillor Panter, if I deal with the first one first. So effectively, when the bin and bag are delivered, there should be a service leaflet explaining the service, but also another flyer that explains when you put when you first put the bin out. That should go through everybody's letterbox. We have had a few problems with that, and that's being addressed at the moment. Then a few days later, through the post, you would get your calendar, and again, just to reinforce what we're doing. But that will come through the post.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
That arrives 3 or 4 days before your first collection.
Excellent.
In terms of the boxes, absolutely brilliant. We can, if you could supply us with the details, we'll be able to help. There's some groups starting to set up about exchanging boxes and things. We've managed to donate through those sort of services about 300 actually to Staffordshire libraries, so a part of their community side of things. So yes, if you want to give me the details, later, I'll make sure we can get in touch and provide them with whatever they need.
Thank you. I'll ask the lady again tomorrow and pass some details on to you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Reddish? You're on mute, Councillor Reddish.
It's okay, I'll turn it now. Sorry about it was jammed. Thanks, Andy, for the work that you're doing. Just a statement, really. You were saying that about the quality of the goods in the south area this week, Monday and Tuesday. Certainly in my area, it wasn't the blue bin. It was the garden and the residual. So that's why you didn't see any cardboard, because it was residual and garden week. So next week will be where we see whether there's a problem or not this week.
No, sorry, Councillor Reddish, I meant actually last week, not this week. So Monday and Tuesday, not this week. Last week was the first elections we did. Apologies if I
Certainly want to see the problem with cardboard this week, I hope. Okay, thanks.
Just on myself, and you know, we had a few problems in Madeley today, Andrew, and there was quite a bit of confusion with residents. And I think if we summed it up, it came down to two issues, which I think hopefully will be learnings moving forward. One is one you've already mentioned, and that is making sure that these leaflets are distributed properly. And I know you're using a third party for that, but it's not as robust as it needs to be.
Yeah.
And the second one, which is really causing confusion, is when we direct people to the website and you put in your actual address and it sends you to when your recycling is next due. So for instance, today, Madeley was supposed to still be on the boxes and not on the blue bin. If you went to the website, it says, yes, it's recycling day, and it shows you a picture of the blue bin and the blue bag. So people get further confused.
Yeah. That's unfortunately one of the problems with the website. We were not able to effectively have the two services. So and the way the collection day finder works, and it's just, yeah, really unfortunate. I suppose in hindsight we would have probably been better not having any symbols, but just, or pictorial symbols, but just stating it was recycling week. So that has been a problem. It's an issue where certainly in this week in your area, and indeed Councillor Sweeney's area, where the deliveries have gone over a weekend. So that is difficult for us to manage operationally, to be fair, as you then roll the collections out. And it's one of the issues that we have in terms of trying to phase those operations in behind the bin deliveries. But I think certainly as we move into the north of the borough, we've learned some valuable lessons over the last 3 or 4 weeks, to be fair. And we know where we can make some improvements. And I think, again, Councillor Panter's point about the calendars, we need to make absolutely sure that when they are posted out is probably more timely than maybe we have over the last couple of weeks, because that's probably the key, really, the key document.
Indeed, thank you. And having said that, your officers responded well and came out and took the blue bins as well as the boxes, and we ended up, all the residents got collected in the end, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
Anything else anyone wants to raise on the new service before we move on to garage workshop very briefly? No? Okay, so moving on to the garage workshop, please.
Okay, I mean, again, this is an important area of the council's work. Sits very much in the background normally, but it is important, not only from the point of view of maintaining the council's own fleet of vehicles, which is actually quite extensive and varied, from simple vans to very complex waste collection vehicles and road sweepers and the like, but also all the other plants, the lawnmowers, the tractors, everything else that we do. So we have to ensure that our fleet has continued to be properly maintained and inspected and actually legal, even though a lot of the rules and regulations have been relaxed during the pandemic period. We took the view that actually we wanted to try and maintain our standing as if the pandemic wasn't there. The other side of it, of course, is that the workshop also, we provide MOTs both for the public, and actually, that's a popular service because we don't do repairs, so we're completely transparent on that. In terms of if a car has got a genuine problem, it is genuine. We're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes or trying to force them to have repairs done, because we don't do repairs on that side. So that's popular. But the bigger side is around the taxi MOT and testing, which is obviously currently suspended nationally. But there's going to be pressure for that to restart in the next month or so, or probably even next few weeks, to be honest. So that's our challenge at the moment, is to prepare for that. And taxis, to be fair, pose quite a risk to us, because in terms of what they actually do, because they're picking up, lots of people during the day. You can't necessarily control who's getting in and out of them, what they're touching, and all of those types of things. So we're very much looking at the moment in terms of how we sanitize those vehicles, and also in terms of our own staff's PPE as well, in terms of them undertaking those tests, because they're a lot more rigorous than a normal MOT. They have to go into the car in a great deal more depth, and for perfectly legitimate reasons. So that's the current challenge there. But again, we will rise to the challenge and do that, because again, it's really important from a public safety point of view that taxis are adequately tested. So again, we can ensure our residents are travelling in vehicles which are safe.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any comments or questions, members, on that last topic? No, can't see anybody wanting to speak. So thank you for that. I mean, I don't think there's any actions or requirements coming out of it, other than to say a big thank you for everything you and your team have done again, and just watch that comms and leafleting on the rest of the rollout. But thank you, Andrew, for that. Okay, so we're moving on to section 39 now, which is street scene. Is that you, Councillor Johnson, again?
Yes, it is. I'm just trying to, I didn't make a note on the street scene situation. I know that now with the people back at work and so on, that we're getting back up to strength on street scene. We've made a few changes where we have become more reactive than proactive, and we seem to have been covering a lot more of the borough on the cleanliness side, and I think people will notice that. We've done very well on, I think, keeping on top of the fly tipping that's been going on. It's something normally, we would have just left it, but we've done it. We had to get out there, get the stuff, keep the streets as clean as possible. Obviously, with the crematorium, everything's going well there. As you know, we've taken on some, Greendale staff have now come in on the gardening side, so there's a lot more work going on there. We've done a fantastic job getting all the flowers out for the summer flowers and the baskets in town. I just think they're doing a fantastic job.
Okay, and the street cleansing operation, any comments on that or anything you'd like to say?
Well, my biggest problem is a county problem, because we've got so many gullies that are blocked at the moment that I'm trying to get done from my county side. But no, I think the streets are looking good. We are cleaning where it needs to be cleaned. I don't know what other members think about that.
Okay, we'll ask them now. Any comments on street scene or street cleansing, members?
No, fine.
No? Okay.
Never, Marion, never.
Well, the only observation I would...
As you know.
Sorry.
Street scene in Renfrew will not be good next Tuesday.
The only observation I would make is to repeat what you've said, and actually I think, particularly during the whole COVID situation, and as we've come out, doing a really good job and keeping our borough looking very good. So it's a credit to your department there.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. Right, we'll move on to development control then, which takes the reins over to Councillor Northcott, I believe. You're muted, Councillor Northcott.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Development control, yes. As you probably expect, the effects of COVID-19 has had an impact in terms of the amount of applications we've had compared with this time last year. It has been down. Having said that, though, the planning department has dealt with the ones very well that have come in. Fortunately, we were able to do a number of site visits before they went into lockdown. But it's been one of those departments that have seemed to have relished working from home to the extent that that the attendance and sickness levels have been minimal, and that's resulted in a strong planning performance across the board, and that's been reflected in the performance figures. If you'd like to go down to point 51 and point 52, you can see the comparisons from this year and the same period last year. In particularly, our planning figures are very good. We did 100% on the majors. Alas, we only had 3 coming into the authority, but that being said, we were 100% on that, and we're 98.1% on minors. So, Chair, you can well imagine that we're very pleased with this, and we've sat through these figures and discussed these figures in the past, and we've been fairly low down these figures, and they have been cause for concern. I know from yourself there that's raised this several times about the figures not being exactly brilliant, but we can safely report that these are good. Now, the acid test is going to be when we emerge out of lockdown and go back to some sort of normality, whether this trend will continue. Now, I see no issues on the horizon that would threaten these figures, and I've got no sort of qualms in terms of I think these will go down. There isn't any major challenges there. Should the work stay at the level it's at, I think it's quite comfortable that they're dealing with it in the planning department. And I think at this point I need to just praise Mr. Sean Fleet and his team for doing a sterling job in difficult circumstances where, you know, with the planning so fast moving, the opportunity to go and speak to somebody else across the room or at another desk has been removed, and it's been effectively managed quite well by Sean and his team. So, Chair, if there's anything that you would like to ask me about the performance figures there, but I think they speak for themselves. I'm very pleased to announce that we've got these performance figures in, and also interesting that the others that have always been part of the planning figures that have dragged down percentages in the past is also been delved into and been reduced as we move on to the next year. Thank you, Chair. Thank you,
Councillor Northcott. No, I think just from an observation point of view, again, what I would like to say is that, again, I think the department's done a sterling job. As far as I'm aware, we were the first to go virtual with planning committee in Staffordshire, and we were leading the way. Our neighbouring authorities like Cheshire East haven't even had one yet. So to carry on with the planning process, not have the delays, I think has been a great job, and well done to you and your team.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, having the planning committee run virtually has no doubt played an important part in getting through the determination of applications. So I'm pleased that that's been able to be carried out in these circumstances. Thank you.
Okay. Any members, any observations or questions? Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Chair. Given that there's been a noticed improved performance from the new working relationships, given the home working, is there any consideration about enabling members of the officers in the planning team to continue that working relationship? If it's leading to greater productivity, it might be something that could be spun out of a positive from this environment that we found ourselves in.
Thank you for that, Councillor Jones. It's something that myself and Head of Planning, Sean Fleet, have talked about today. We held a neighbourhood development planning group with 2 parish councils today, which was very successful. I think that we'd be foolish not to take advantage of the forums that we've been able to use while we've been in lockdown. There's some positives that have come out of here. I think in terms of our delivery, both as a flexible and responsive council, I think in terms of the planning department especially, I think this will only just improve things more, and also improve accessibility in the way that our image is given to the parishes and other wards when the need arises. For example, today we had quite a few people that are very difficult to pin down in terms of venues because of the travelling distances, but it was able to go ahead today quite successfully, and we're thinking about a possibility of reintroducing a different variation of what used to be the planning forum, the parish council's forum, with a different view, a different agenda, where keeping wards and members more updated and having that access and that flexibility to interact with the planning department on a more regular and informative basis. So yes, I take your points on board 100%. We need to take away the positives of this experience and see how we can apply it in the future.
Thank you. Any other questions, members? No. So I think you've obviously heard what Councillor Jones had to say, and you've agreed with that. I don't think we need to take that any further. So as there's no more questions, then thank you, Councillor Northcott, and well done again.
Thank you, Chair.
So that now leads us to the end of the main pack on the coronavirus pandemic update. That takes us on to item 5, which is urgent business. I've not been made aware of any urgent business, so unless someone corrects me, we will pass on to item 6, which is disclosure of exempt information. And again, I'm not aware of any. So at that point, I'd like to thank members. I'm going to close the meeting in a moment. I think actually, given the number of us on here, it's been relatively technically competent, which is great. It's good to see that it's been so successful. So thank you to everybody involved, and I'll close the meeting now. Good night.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.